Mortal Kombat, or more accurately, should I say,
Immortal Kombat.
the reason we have the ESRB. For many of us, the first time we saw digitized blood, the first game that allowed me to pull a still beating heart straight out of someone's chest, rip someone's spine out of their back, or turn into a freaking dragon.
After 31 years, this franchise is still going strong. We've got over 20 games, and we're going into the brand new game now. And with over 80 characters already in the MK universe, Chris and I decided that now would be a good time for us to rank all of the fighters. Here's the list of rules that we set for ourselves to make these rankings.
Number 1, each fighter will be presented as they were in their original debut. Meaning if they become someone else or something else at some point, then that will be 2 entries.
The movies will not be a part of this list. Fuck Cole Young. Fuck the producers for putting him in the movie. Fuck Arcana. Fuck all this bullshit that they put in this movie. It's a Mortal Kombat movie. We knew there was going to be fireballs. We wanted fireballs. We don't have to explain fireballs to us.
Calm down.
Sorry.
Number 3, this list, of course, is nothing official. It's a fun project that we wanted to work on together. We used the playability, the lore, power set, personality, design, and moveset of each fighter to come up with our opinions. We'd also love to hear your opinions, though. Hit us up in the comments. Let's keep it friendly, keep it fun, and discuss away.
Finally, if you enjoy this type of content, please like, follow, and subscribe.
Starting off the top 10 of the Mortal Kombat rankings is arguably the breakout star, the surprise hit, if you will, of the original Mortal Kombat game. We have the Heart Ripper himself, the one-eyed laser shooting badass, Kano. I am just excited, and this is one of the decisions we made that I feel was 100% on the money to put him in the number 10 spot.
Character design-wise, personality-wise, lore-wise, he's the leader of the Black Dragon clan. Playability is off the charts. One of my favorite players to play with of all time. Thunderball is the most exploited move. I don't care what you say. I'll use it over and over again.
You know, it's funny you say that because this is the Mortal Kombat version of a character that can seem very easy to play as, but if you really master his moveset and his speed and style, you can become unbelievably deadly with him and make it difficult for any other character to gain the upper hand on you.
Absolutely. Combos into a Thunderball, into another combo, into a juggle combo, and everything like that. Plus, he's a badass. He's got a laser eye. He's got a big knife. He talks with an Australian accent. What more could you ask for? Kano is the ultimate male.
He is actually the only character that I would say has not only improved from the very first game to the current games, but also improved from the very first movie to the current movies. Because they've just somehow been able to not only nail his character, but make it better and better and better for, how long has the game been out now? And Kano's just improved the entire time. There's never been a setback. The only setback was when he wasn't in the game, which was always a mistake.
Yeah, the only time when they replaced him with who was that guy that was in like the 80s or the 70s that we talked about?
Was it Kai or Cobra or whatever?
One of the other Black Dragon guys. Yeah.
I don't remember. This is how bad that character is because I don't remember their name. I'll never forget Kano. So he's got the best fatalities, phenomenal moveset. He's hysterical. He's basically the evil version of Johnny Cage with the jokes and the quips. And just a phenomenal character. That's our number 10, Kano.
Coming in at number 9, we have the red-clad telekinetic ninja, Ermac. This character, like a lot of the other ninjas that we talked about earlier, was just a palette swap early on, but has evolved so much over the years. His telekinetic powers lead him to one of the most powerful Mortal Kombat fighters out there right now.
100%. And I think one of the reasons why he kind of moves so far up the list and made the top 10 is not only because, again, they've improved his look tremendously over the last few games, but lore-wise, they made him the reason that Jax needed the cybernetic arms. And that was just such a jaw-dropping kind of moment I remember happening during the story mode of Mortal Kombat from 2011 that it shot him up the ranks as to one of the most badass characters in the Mortal Kombat world.
Yeah, the way they've been able to weave Ermac in and out of storylines in other aspects of Mortal Kombat has really proven that he's a mainstay. Plus, his power set's insane. Like, honestly, being able to telekinetically lift your opponent up and then juggle combo them makes him one of the toughest. He's one of the toughest to master, but also one of the toughest to fight against.
100%. He's one of those characters that I've always wanted to learn and to main and all that stuff, but it's like I could never fully wrap my head around the mechanics of the character. So I would always go to some other characters instead. I tend to veer towards the more like wrestlery kind of characters, like your Jaxes, your Sonyas and stuff. But his character, to me, when they kind of mummified him a little bit, and that whole like kind of storyline in Mortal Kombat in the 2011 version really solidified him as one of the scarier characters in the game to play against, which was always something that made me nervous whenever I was playing against somebody who picked him.
Yeah, Rain and Ermac both had probably the biggest glow ups in Mortal Kombat history. They started as palette swap ninjas and then wound up being full-fledged out characters that really, really show you that instead of just doing like some weird palette swap, we're gonna give you full-fledged characters out of these guys.
100%.
Them two and Noob Saibot too, I'd say. Because he went from just an all-black ninja to the monster that he is today. But that's your number 9. Ermac.
Zapping into the number 8 spot in our top 10 is the former Lord of Thunder himself, Thor. I'm sorry, not Thor, Raiden. This is the guy who was essentially the good guy in charge, the head honcho, if you will, for every single game up until Mortal Kombat 11, when he, on his own, to try and break the cycle of violence that apparently Chronica explained always happens, he gave his power and his soul and life and whatever willingly to merge with Liu Kang to create the fire god Liu Kang, who is now in charge of all of time. This was he was appeared in Mortal Kombat 1. He's basically been in every single game since then in some form or another, and he's always been badass.
Yeah, Raiden's been the guy that always had to collect all of the fighters for Mortal Kombat. So he puts together the Earthrealm team over and over and over again, being one of the Elder Gods. He's your link to the Elder Gods and to the fighters themselves, and to why he's the referee of Mortal Kombat. But on top of all that, he's also a badass fighter with lightning powers. And who doesn't want to have lightning powers?
He also became an Elder God himself after beating Shinnok for the second time, lore-wise, in Mortal Kombat 10. He actually, I think the weirdest, he's a good character because the weirdest decision ever made with his character was when they hired a German actor to play him in the first movie. Otherwise, they've never gotten his character wrong. And arguably, in my opinion, in the last game where they had him become more of like a benevolent or a malevolent kind of leader and be quick to kill and all stuff to just end his foes, made him even more interesting.
Yeah, the tone shift that they had in the last game really, really made him a very, very interesting character. To go from the guy that was always trying to protect Earthrealm and not cause excess lives to be damaged, to just murking half the world because, like, why not?
He's got the one issue I've always had with him is that I felt like they never got creative enough with his powers and his fatalities. They always kind of stuck to the electrocuting somebody, and it wasn't until probably the last 2 games that they finally kind of expanded on that idea. Up until then, it was always the same kind of nonsense, and that was kind of boring compared to everything else we saw.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's probably why he made it so high up into the top 10 and didn't land a little bit lower, closer to the 1 spot. But Raiden, forever, I will always play as Raiden because his moveset was always great, and the fatalities and some of the things that in the most recent game in MK11, his friendship is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. So he has Kid Thunder. It's called Kid Thunder.
Kid Thunder, and they bust a move better than anyone you've ever seen in the Mortal Kombat world. That is number 8, the God of Thunder, the Elder God, former God of Thunder, Raiden.
At number 7, we got the saw blade hat wearing, the White Lotus Society member, former Shaolin monk, Kung Lao. This guy's the reason why Liu Kang got involved in Mortal Kombat in the first place, debuting all the way back in Mortal Kombat 2. Kung Lao is one of the most awesome players to use and utilize power sets with, teleportation, hat moves, saw blades, spinning hats, all types of crazy stuff. Love this character so much. And another Shaolin monk on the list.
Giving him the connection to Liu Kang as somebody who basically felt like he should be the chosen one to fight for Earth and overlooked for Liu Kang. So he always had this chip on his shoulder, was such a smart decision to make him not feel like your standard hero. You know, he was always a good guy, but he always had that kind of like arrogance to him where you can kind of question if whether or not he's actually going to switch sides since they didn't choose him. And to me, that always made him interesting lore-wise, and it always made his character a little bit more badass than he kind of looked.
Absolutely. Plus, he always had a chip on his shoulder because he was in the shadow of his great ancestor, the great Kung Lao. But what also made this character awesome, besides the lore-wise, is he has some of the most brutal fatalities known to man, where he throws his hat, makes it spin, and then drags a guy by the legs, where the hat starts just slicing a dude in half like he's at a log flume. What more could you ask for?
To put it in perspective, his fatality is so iconic, the one you're describing, that it's one of the few fatalities that made it into live action in bloody, glorious detail. He kills Natara, spoiler alert, in the latest movie by throwing his hat down. It spins like a buzzsaw, and he just slides her face right into it. Brutal. But it's honestly, this is what we come to Mortal Kombat for, is shit like that.
And it's one of the redeeming qualities of that movie. One of the very few redeeming qualities of that movie.
The only thing that would have made it better is if he did that fatality to Cole Young. But we don't want to get into that.
Don't get us started on Cole Young.
Yeah, please.
That's your number 7, the Shaolin monk, Kung Lao.
Number 6, freezing his way into the just outside of the top 5, is Bihan Sub-Zero. This is the OG original Sub-Zero. He was in Mortal Kombat 1. He was in Mortal Kombat Mythologies. Then his next appearance was way down the line after Noob Saibot was no longer a character.
Yeah, Bihan was the original Sub-Zero. A little bit less powerful than the Sub-Zero we get later on. He doesn't have some of the same powers. But one of the great things with Bihan is that as he became Noob Saibot, he became Cyber Sub-Zero. Like, he's kind of all over the place as being the OG master of the Lin Kuei.
I think arguably his best form, in my opinion, was in Mortal Kombat 1. He had, at the time, the most iconic fatality with the skull rip, where he ripped the spine out with the skull. I mean, it was, at the time, considered so brutal that's why the MSRP even exists to this day, because, you know, it looks so real. Don't roll your eyes when you see that fatality now, because it looks nothing even close to reality. But at the time, that was a big, big deal.
Yeah, at the time, we'd never seen anything like that in a video game before. Doom had done some pretty crazy things, but Duke Nukem had done some pretty crazy things, but nothing compared to when the original Sub-Zero, when Bihan rips that dude's skull and spine. And we loved every single second of it. That's why he's got a separate, very special place on this list.
Yes. If you want to see a good version of that fatality, watch the opening cinematic to Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. It was a 2-player action adventure game, and in the opening cinematic, you see him do it to somebody, and it, probably looks the best in that game. So that is number 6. We are now approaching the top 5. Number 6 is Bihan Sub-Zero.
At number 5, the blind swordsman himself, Kenshi. This character, albeit a newer character, and one of the only newer characters that really made it into the top 10, has been an absolute dynamic character to be brought into the Mortal Kombat realm. He's a blind swordsman that uses a telekinetic sword to fight with. What an amazing character for them to develop for us.
I feel like, to put into perspective on how big of a deal he is in the Mortal Kombat world, just remember that when Mortal Kombat 1, the new game, was premiered for everyone to even realize it's coming out, him and Johnny Cage were the first two characters that they confirmed as part of the main roster. So that shows you how important he is to the creators of the game and to the lore of the game.
Kenshi also made a huge debut in Deadly Alliance, and immediately on the tournament circuit became mostly everybody's favorite player to use.
Yeah.
I've seen so many pro gamers use Kenshi that it's insane that they didn't ban him from pro play.
I think one of the big benefits to his character, besides just always kind of nailing his look with every change, he always looked cool, is the creativity that went into his moveset and his fatalities. They seem to always just find good creative ways and interesting ways to use the fact that he's blind and he uses a telekinetic sword to enhance every single move he does.
Yeah, listen to what we're just saying. He's blind and he uses a telekinetic sword. Okay? That's something you will only ever hear in a Mortal Kombat game.
And rightfully so.
And rightfully so. That's number 5, the blind swordsman himself, Kenshi.
Jumping into our number 4 spot is one of the first, or actually the first wizard in the Mortal Kombat world, Quan Chi. He actually made his debut in the animated series Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm, but his first video game debut was in Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero as the antagonist, tricking Sub-Zero into getting the amulet that he eventually uses, that Quan Chi eventually uses to release Shinnok. And do yourself a favor, people. If you haven't watched the FMV sequences on the PlayStation version of Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, do it, YouTube it, find a way to watch it just so you can see the shit acting of Quan Chi, but he'll win you over because that's how cool the character is.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the fact that this is the bad guy from Mythology Sub-Zero and he's lasted this long in Mortal Kombat shows you how great this character really is.
Absolutely.
Because that might be one of the worst games ever made. And we're still rocking Quan Chi to this day.
I mean, he went from Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, I agree with you, one of the worst Mortal Kombat properties ever to come out, to becoming one of the main antagonists in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, teaming up with Shang Tsung to basically get the storyline going for that game. It just kind of shows you how badass he is. And from there, he's surpassed Shang Tsung as a main player, working directly with Shinnok, giving his life to resurrect Shinnok. I mean, that's how serious this character is.
Yeah, even playability-wise, the first time you actually got to play as him was in Mortal Kombat 4, which was a dumpster fire of a game that we've talked about many times in this doing these videos. And he was a bright, shining star in Mortal Kombat 4. Like, he was actually able to play as him. Great power set, great move set. Was such a breath of fresh air in that game because the rest was so bad.
In that game in particular, actually, he had two of the only fatalities that stood out and that I still remember to this day. One of them being he jumped on you and stretched your head so long that it killed you somehow. And the second one, the better one, is he ripped your leg off. And then he didn't just, beat you to death with it. He never stops hitting you. Throughout the finish him animation, throughout the Quan Chi wins animation, up until the screen fades to black, he is still just pounding you into oblivion with your own friggin' leg. And that always made me laugh.
Yeah, I mean, as far as sorcerers go in Mortal Kombat, you don't get much better than Quan Chi. Maybe one, and maybe we'll see him very shortly.
Yeah,
but
very, very shortly. So
Quan Chi is the guy.
So throwing a big green skull at the number 4 spot is Quan Chi.
Coming in at number 3 is the Outworld sorcerer himself, the badass Shang Tsung. This whole series, basically, main antagonist has been Shang Tsung. He's always in the background doing something, whether he's working with Shinnok, whether he's working with Quan Chi. Either way, the movies always have him as the bad guy. So much so that he was portrayed by, can I get this right, Cary Tagawa in the original Mortal Kombat movies. Yeah. And they have now gone back and modeled the character in the game to look like Cary Tagawa. Like, that's how much they are intertwined together. And it just goes to show you he is the biggest of big bads when it comes to Mortal Kombat.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if you don't or tell me if you disagree with this, but Shang Tsung is to Mortal Kombat as Frieza is to the Dragon Ball world. He may not be the most powerful villain, but he's always in the mix, trying to get ahead somehow, sneaking his way in. He's conniving, but he's so fun to hate.
Absolutely. And to have an old, centuries old sorcerer who feeds off the souls of the men he kills in combat be the thing that has to keep his youth and his vitality. What a great he's a soul vampire.
That's 100% what he is. That's 100% what he is. And honestly, I'll never forget, fighting him in the original game, talk about OGs, and he's just this old guy floating around, and then they bring him back in the second game, and he's a young dude with dark hair. And the lore explanation is that he used some souls to get himself stronger and faster since he lost. Since then, he's had a few different looks, but his style and his design has always been badass and phenomenal, culminating in Mortal Kombat 11. He even has one of the most badass scenes in the cinematics for the story mode in the DLC version, where he just basically starts dodging without even bothering to try to fuck somebody up. I mean, really just a phenomenal character. Always had great fatalities.
Absolutely. His power set's always been amazing. The fact that he can change himself into any character in Mortal Kombat is a great wrinkle to have to fight against. And without it feeling like he's like a Mokujin or a who's the guy in Mocap.
I do like in the last game how instead of having you input certain button combinations to just change it to any character you wanted, his combos would automatically see him just swap out from the classic ninjas.
So amazing.
Just a smart way to keep that mechanic, but not make it such a difficult thing to use mid-fight. Because the whole issue was, you might change to Sub-Zero or Scorpion or whatever, but by the time you decide to switch to someone else, you're getting your ass kicked because you have to put a whole button combination.
Absolutely. And they streamlined it so well. In fact, Mortal Kombat 11 is probably my favorite version of Shang Tsung that we've gotten.
I think
he's modeled after Kara Tagawa. The playability of him is so high, it's not even funny. Personally, I never played a Shang Tsung because he was so hard to use. They didn't dumb it down. They still made him difficult to master, but he's at least playable now.
100%. 100%. I even think that just to show how big of a deal he is as far as an antagonist goes, is in the base game for Mortal Kombat 11, the bad guy was Kronika, the elder god of elder gods who ran the whole timeline, and then they released DLC, and in that DLC, Shang Tsung becomes the bad guy, basically surpassing the elder god. So that just shows you how baller his character was.
Absolutely. Completely diabolical. That's your number 3 spot. Shang Tsung. Your soul is mine.
Ice sculpting his way into number 2 is the younger brother of the OG Sub-Zero. This is Kuai Lang Sub-Zero. First introduced in Mortal Kombat 2, and then, Mortal Kombat 3, and then continuing on since then. This is the guy who took over the Sub-Zero mantle and arguably made it one of the most popular characters in the entire franchise.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it that the later version of Sub-Zero is the Sub-Zero that we all love. Like the ice clone, the slide, the moveset became so much better in later games, and it was all the Kuai Lang Sub-Zero.
This is the one who essentially he goes searching for his brother because his brother goes missing after the first Mortal Kombat tournament. And at first he hides his face, and then he kind of reveals himself as not the original OG. And then they kind of veered away from him as they brought Noob Saibot and Bihan back into the fold. But I would love to see them bring the younger version back in, and just to give us a kind of a separate, different style of Sub-Zero versus always using the same original guy that we've had now for how many games.
Yeah, it's great to see different versions of Sub-Zero, because knowing that he's the master of the Lin Kuei, and then Lin Kuei are a clan of ice ninjas, basically, you were always wondering, like, why wasn't there any other ice ninjas? Right. And then you got Frost, and then you got Cyber Sub-Zero and whatnot. But it's a great lore wise, one of the best story turns you have.
I do think, in my opinion, in order to bring him back, they should maybe separate him from the family aspect. Just like you said, make him another ninja of the Lin Kuei who has ice powers and is maybe being mentored by Bihan. But he doesn't have to actually be his younger brother. He could just be a whole other entity. And to be truthful, maybe this is an evil version. This is, if Sub-Zero went full evil without having to be brainwashed or anything like that, that would be kind of an interesting way to take the character. But I mean, I always thought his costume in Mortal Kombat 3, where he was basically shirtless with like the straps that kind of called back to his original costume, was amazing. And the scar in his eye, it just added a little kind of character to and backstory to him that we didn't have before. So I've always loved him. His ice shower was one of my favorite moves, where he would just shoot the ice in the air and he can get you from far away or up close. It just kind of surprised you. The ice clone and the ice slide were great. And then his fatalities were just fantastic. He would always freeze you, then shatter you.
I mean, Sub-Zero's always had some of the best fatalities known to man. And having a character, the one character with ice powers for so long, and when everybody else has fire powers, it's like, why not have the one guy with ice powers?
Yeah, because everyone has fire powers, so it's time to show the ice side some love. So that is our number 2 spot. I think everyone saw who was coming at number 1. Number 2 is Kuai Lang Sub-Zero, and we're going to move right along to number 1.
Get over here. That's right. Number 1. You knew who it was going to be. Everybody knew who it was going to be. It's the guy. It's your man. It's Scorpion. He's the guy that's going to be number 1 on the list because, quite frankly, he is the most well-known member of Mortal Kombat. He's more well-known than Liu Kang. He's more well-known than Sub-Zero. You ask anybody, if you show them a picture of Scorpion, what are they going to say? That's Scorpion.
God, I have such fond memories of playing the original games and just mastering every aspect of the Scorpion character. He was always probably the easiest character to learn, but the hardest character to master. I mean, if you get your timing down on his teleportation punch and his Hellfire in later games, you could become a freaking powerhouse with this character.
Yeah, teleportation punch to triple hit combo to spear to teleportation punch to Hellfire kick over and over and over again. I can master that combo over and over. I love it so much. He's one of the best characters to play with. The other thing that they've done with him is the inputs have always been the same for all of his moves. So much so that when they put him in Injustice, his inputs were all the same.
Yeah, all you had to do was learn him once, and then you just knew how to play as him in every single game. Even the later games where they were trying to give him different play styles and different weapons, it was still all the same moves. And it just made it easy to kind of use him as your starting point for every single Mortal Kombat game.
So much so that my younger brothers were very big in Injustice, and we would go back and forth and we'd have some pretty good wars until they added Scorpion in, and then I would decimate them at every given moment simply because, and my brother asked me right away, how are you this good? And I said, I've been playing with Scorpion for 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, Scorpion is no joke. There's a reason why he basically is in every game. And the one game, I believe, where he wasn't in was considered one of the worst Mortal Kombat games. He's been in almost every single movie, in every single animated movie. I mean, he was the best part of the last live action movie we got. He's always had some of the best fatalities ever. I mean, in the original game, the mask rip turning into the skull and then burning your opponent to a crisp, that fatality is still around, just to show you how iconic of a fatality that was.
And he's had a great evolution. He went from just being the yellow ninja with the spear and the Hellfire fatality to being a demon from hell that is filled with vengeance and rage over the death of his family. They've expanded his lore so much for the Shinryu and all of that stuff. It's an amazing story. Scorpion is the main character of Mortal Kombat.
100%. I don't think you can argue it. This is why he jumps to the number 1 spot.
100%. There's no other person you could put at number 1 besides Scorpion, and that's why he is topping our list of the Mortal Kombat fighters.
So that's it, man. We just went through all 80 Mortal Kombat fighters, all 80 versions of characters that have been introduced in Mortal Kombat. And while there are some that I question whether we made the right decision, I think the top 5 is the right choice for the top 5 of this list.
I mean, listen, you can argue with a few of the other, where they go, if they go up or down a couple of spots, but the top 5 on this list is pretty much set in stone.
I'm excited to kind of revisit this once the new game comes out. With our top 10, that means that it's this week. So if you haven't gotten a copy, grab a copy, start playing. The story is going to be phenomenal. The gameplay already looks fantastic. And I'm curious to revisit this list when we see the full roster of cameo fighters and main fighters, and wonder if we're going to make any changes. I mean, like we already said that Reptile, if we went through this list before MK1 was revealed and released, Reptile would probably be a lot closer to the top.
Way higher. Be way higher than where we put him. Along with Ashrah. We said we just got the Ashrah debut.
Completely made her a better character.
She would have been way higher also. So, I mean, this is definitely going to shake things up. We also have to see if they bring us any new characters. We haven't gotten a lot of new characters. Mortal Kombat 11 really didn't bring us much new.
Yeah, so besides the Chronica and
besides the
Garrus and Cetrion.
Yeah,
that's it. Everyone else was a returning character.
I can't wait to see if they bring us some new Outworld characters, some new ninjas, maybe some new robots, possibly. Who knows? But we'll see.
Well, I guess it's up to Liu Kang at this point, right?
The Elder God, Liu Kang, baby.
So that's our Mortal Kombat rankings, all 80 characters. Let us know what you think in the comments. Any support that you send our way, likes and subscribes, is greatly appreciated. And also, we're big fighting game fans. Let us know what fighting game you might want to hear us do a ranking with next. We love Tekken. I love Virtual Fighter, Dead or Alive, Street Fighter. I mean, there's a ton of fighting games. Guilty Gear, Dragon Ball FighterZ. We can go through a whole bunch of them. Let us know in the comments. Follow us on Facebook, on TikTok, on Twitter, all the social medias. And we'll see you in the Netherrealm, in the games, and happy fighting.